Hello everybody, it is Nicole from iiKiui, where I want to help you improve your art. Today I'll be teaching you how to color smoothly with alcohol-based markers, which is not to be confused with how to blend. I will have a video coming out soon on how to blend, so stay tuned for that. I've used these techniques with many different marker tips, including brush tip, chisel tip, and bullet nib. I've also used these techniques with different marker brands, so you can use whatever you have handy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right in. The first tip is to keep the page wet. What you want to do is keep the marker ink saturated in the paper so it doesn't dry out. If you let it dry out, it will create harsh lines, which makes the coloring less smooth. You could also invest in some marker paper. I use Bristol board, which isn't the best for alcohol-based markers because it absorbs a lot of ink, but that's what I use and it works for the time being. I will go over this concept in more detail when I reveal the other tips. The next tip is to go from one direction. When coloring with markers, it is important not to jump all over the place. Like I mentioned in the previous tip, keeping the page wet is essential, and if you jump all over the place, especially in a large area, it can dry up and end up looking blotchy. What I like to do is to start from a corner or edge, for example a background shape or the tip of the hair, and work my way into the larger areas, continuing from where I started. This way, the area I'm working on is connected to the previous area, making it easier to create a smoother blend. The next tip is to do one rough layer. I've been using this technique for a while now, and if you saw some of my Inktober videos, I had a rectangle as the background shape. I especially do this with larger areas because it initially makes the page wet, then I go over it again and it smooths it all out. First, I mainly focus on covering all the areas I want to, especially if it's a large area. I try to make sure everything I want to be colored is colored. It is okay if this part of the process looks blotchy. Then, I go in with the same marker again while the page is still wet and cover the entire area. This basically smooths out the whole area without having to worry about whether or not you will get every nook and cranny in one go. I found that this works best in large areas. However, keep in mind that if you do let the first layer dry out, it will be more difficult to create that smooth blend that you want. The next tip is to work in sections. If you have line art, then use it to your advantage. Working in sections is the easiest way to avoid patchiness, and as an added benefit, it also flows with the artwork. For example, if you have a lot of hair that you want to color, and you've already sectioned it off into pieces, color each individual piece until it is smooth. That way, you know that particular piece is smooth and you don't have to worry about it blending into the next section because it is divided by the line art. I did this in my Inktober pieces as well because when I was coloring the background shapes, they were divided into sections because I had the character in front. Usually, I tackle the smaller sections with the bullet nib and the larger sections with the chisel tip. I focused on making that particular section smooth first before moving on. The next tip is layering. This tip kind of ties everything together, but it's also about blending. Similar to the rough layer tip, adding layers while the page is still wet can help make the marker appear smooth. First, I put down one layer of a lighter color. Then I add in a darker color, which could be a blush or a shadow or something I just want as a gradient. Then, after adding in the darker color, I layer on the lighter color again to blend it all together. Here, you want to make sure the paper is still wet or else you will get hard lines. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I will have a tutorial video on how to blend with alcohol-based markers coming out soon, so be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified of when that comes out. I hope you found these tips useful or helpful in any way, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. So with that, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. Keep drawing, keep creating, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!